Almost half a year ago, on July 13th, 2024, an attempt on the life of who is now soon to be America's 47th President, Donald Trump, was made. During a speech in Butler County, Pennsylvania, the shooter would be a 20-year-old man who had discharged 8 rounds from the roof of a nearby building, with one clipping the at-the-time ex-president's ear. Now, this channel is not related to politics, and neither do I plan to dive into such discussion. If you have been around this channel in the past, or if you are viewing my video for the first time, then it might be good to know that in previous videos, I've made an effort to, in a sense, relate real-life events to stories and world building that we find existing in a lot of our video games and other entertainment media. For example, back in July, I made a video talking about The Division, a game about a disease throwing the world into an almost apocalyptic lifestyle, and with this existence of a world, I would have related back to the global pandemic of COVID and how they are two semi-similar events, but both with tremendously different outcomes. Of course, with one completely fictional and the other being the real-life outcome. Now, this being said, I like to take you all into a time when a video game threw us into a moment where you had to decide the fate of a major faction's president. Today, I will be talking about that time that Fallout New Vegas had you save President Kimball's life of the NCR, or that time when it was you who had to kill him.
And so the courier who had cheated death in the cemetery outside Good Springs cheated death once again. As decades passed, what had been the American Southwest united beneath the flag of the new California Republic, dedicated to old world values of democracy.
If you want to see the fate of democracies, look out the windows.
But across the Colorado, another society had arisen under a different flag. A vast army of slaves forged from the conquest of 86 tribes, Caesar's Legion. They returned with tales of a city untouched by the warheads that had scorched the rest of the world.
Our story starts with you, our protagonist, being shot in the head by a man in a checkered suit. You wake up to discover that you were then pulled out of your grave and brought immediately to a doctor in the nearby town of Good Springs. Upon leaving the doctor's house, your entire purpose is to traverse the wasteland of a post-apocalyptic Nevada in the search for the man who shot you and stole your package. In the journey, you start to meet the different factions of the Wasteland.
Friends, and we're burning this town to the ground. Got it?
We'll keep that in mind.
With early on meeting the Powder Gangers, a group of ex-convicts who eventually rebelled and took over their captors, whom of which are the NCR, which you first meet on your way into Prim, as one of their troopers tells you that Prim is unsafe and is overran by the previous ex-convicts, or aka the Powder Gangers.
From the prison up the road have taken over the town. Everyone inside is either dead or in hiding.
Past Prim, further up the I-15, you eventually find yourself at the Mojave outpost, visible for miles with the giant statue of a unification monument, a symbol which signifies the unification to the east and west of the Ranger veterans and the Desert Rangers. Upon exploring the outpost, you discover that this is the checkpoint between the travel interstate of the I-15, between California and Nevada, but this place has its issues, as merchants are being backed up in the area as the roads of the I-15 are deemed unsafe, and the NCR struggle to allocate the resources to clear these roads, as now that Prim has turned into a crime hotspot, and even further past that near Courier Junction, where death claws have infested the area, making it impossible for anyone to even survive getting through. Reaching the rooftop of the outpost, you'll meet a sniper by the name of Ghost, who will ask that you do some exploring of the nearby town Nipton, and report back to her on why there is smoke in the distance.
I think there's trouble in Nipton. No traffic from there on the roads. While I can explain that away, smoke from the town I can't. I'm sure it's been hit. What I need to know is if they survived it.
Once making way to Nipton, you'll be approached by a crazy man, ecstatic about winning some sort of lottery, but not clarifying which one. 99% of Fallout players blow this guy up. Progressing further into town, things start to turn sinister, as you notice large parts of the town on fire, rows of crosses with Powder Gangers all crucified to them left to their fate. And as you continue down along the main street to the town's courthouse, you are greeted by a group of men by the name of Legionaries.
Don't worry, I won't have you lashed to a cross like the rest of these degenerates. It's useful that you happen by. I want you to witness the fate of the town of Nipton.
The one who specifically talks to you is Vulpus and Colta, Frumentari of the fabled Legion. You learn that the Legion rounded up everybody in town as they saw them as degenerates and forced them to play a lottery.
First up was the lucky losers. They got decapitated. Guess that's lucky cause it's pretty quick. Then came the crucifixions. God damn, but those went on and on and on. Third place runners-up got enslaved. I got the fuck beat out of my legs in the winter, they let go free.
This is a town of despair, but also an example of a political message being made from one faction to another, as Vulpes will ask you to spread the message of Legion's atrocity. But from these few locations and towns that we had the time to explore and delve into, I believe that off the bat of this game, we are already given our message of how this game is going to play out. You are a character in a wasteland of the ruins of what was once a successful human society, and after the wake of a nuclear apocalypse, you journey through instances of humans trying to survive this new world that they find themselves upon. And very clearly, you are bestowed upon the struggles that these humans must go upon, which is the very message of Fallout itself. Rather, it's seeing the struggle of a small town being forced to all shelter inside of a casino due to a raid of bandits in their town, to a larger scale issue of two major factions and their dealings with massive territory issues. It will soon become very clear to you that you are just one cog that accidentally found itself into the components of a very big machine. As you progress through the game, you finally find yourself at the bread and butter of this world, New Vegas. The remains of a pre-war Las Vegas now stripped down to a small street of a few casinos and bordered by a less rich existence of civilians who find themselves in their situation becoming poorer and poorer. Once entering the strip, a lot happens here. You first enter the tops and finally come face to face with Benny.
What in the goddamn?
Which, depending on how you deal with him, rather now or later, you'll eventually get your hands back into the original package, the Platinum Chip, which once brought this to Mr. House and the Lucky 38, another casino which hasn't been open in years. With you being the first to gain access inside, Mr. House makes it clear what this chip was. It was an upgrade module, so that the House could program his robot army in order to gain control of the Strip and the Mojave itself. And that's it. This is what Fallout New Vegas is about. The entire map so far of what we have seen is a giant power struggle between multiple forces, and the one thing these forces tend to control is a major playing chip in the entire gamble of this war, the Hoover Dam, and its capabilities to garner its production of electricity. So now that we know our factions and what they all strive for, how did this happen? How did they get here? And how long had they been struggling just for this little piece of wasteland? And most importantly, why is the potential death of a president so existential? Well, stick around and we'll jump right into it. Now, Fallout New Vegas has many different factions, all playing into each other in various different ways, with there being major factions that the player can choose to have become the ruler of the Mojave, but for the sake of this video, I only plan to speak about two of these factions, the NCR, or the New California Republic, and Caesar's Legion. I'd like to start this video off discussing the NCR and playing along their side of the story. During the events of Fallout New Vegas, of which you are present, the year is 2281, at which this point the NCR has been involved in the Mojave region for about 28 years, with having controlled the dam itself for only 7 of those 28. During this control for 7 years across Colorado, the river which the dam blocks would soon to be a large storm that would start to brew just on the other side of the dam. In 2277, the Legion would set up and build Fortification Hill, which would act as the main military headquarters for the Legion, would stand as a monument of impending doom to the onlookers of the Mojave region and to the NCR that holds it. But the NCR being in the region isn't just by mistake, and not by just pure default. The NCR occupying Vegas has a lot of history. The NCR started out as a small group of vault dwellers in the first Fallout, who would leave Vault 15 and move into a town that they would eventually name Shady Sands. Eventually, the leader and his daughter, who would eventually become President Tandy, would over time turn this small town into a bigger civilization and bring this town prosperity as trade routes would start to be created and cultural exchange would bring this society ever so closer to a national entity. Eventually, the idea to create such an organization was popular amongst other wastelanders in the area, and in 2186 a government would be established, a constitution would be drafted, and the New California Republic would spawn into existence. In the next 3 years, the Republic proper would be voted into existence as a federation of 5 other major civilizations in the area. Within the next century, the NCR would become a model of post-apocalyptic success and would become to the reality of over 700,000 NCR citizens. With this would come the introduction to large-spread politics, rule and law, and a heavily militarized force. In 2248, after a 52-year presidency, President Tandy would eventually pass on, which would become a revolutionary point for the existence of the NCR as a nation would start to experience heavy economical growth and drastic political changes to the politics of the nation's ideals. The NCR would start to seek a policy of expansion, and one of these expansive movements would be the Mojave Campaign, which would be led by none other than President Kimball, the man in which this video will be discussing. So what is the Mojave Campaign, and how does it matter to Fallout New Vegas itself? Well, the entire reason the NCR in Nevada region is primarily due to this geopolitical expansion. Just a few years after President Tandy's death in 2253, the NCR would lose 38 of its citizens who would be slaughtered by random Mojave raiders. This event would kickstart a retaliation by the NCR, and with the president at the time, President Wendell Peterson, will go on to deploy 3 NCR battalions in the Mojave, kickstarting the campaign. At first, this campaign would mainly exist in order for the NCR to pacify the random raider tribes in the area, but over time this mission would slowly turn into the annexing of the Mojave into NCR territory, and eventually the protection of the dam and holding the region off from the Legion. Now, the very beginning of this annexation of the Mojave started with the Mojave Outpost, which was made in order for transportation between the western NCR and the Mojave. In 2273, the NCR would send rangers east of the outpost in order to look for anything of interest, with eventually not only discovering the pre-war city of Vegas being almost untouched, but that the Hoover Dam was still operable if worked on. Now, originally the NCR would be able to just roll over the location and take control if they wanted to, but this was not the case, as it would become apparent that the location was owned by Mr. House himself, forcing the NCR to sign the Treaty of New Vegas, which would allow for the NCR to draw 95% of the dam's power throughout its core regions, while allowing for the remaining 5% to be sent to the Strip itself. Not only this, but the NCR citizens and troops were allowed access to the Strip as long as the NCR recognized Vegas as an independent city. Something that's actually less discussed in the Fallout universe is the Thaler Act, which is another underlying subtone to the existence of the NCR as another possible reason for this force expansion by the NCR, is the fact that due to the NCR's ever-increasing population and demand for supplies and resources, the NCR would eventually be forced to expand in order to gain more territory for their farmers and agricultural existence. This is something in the game that is shown to us through a tiny location outside of the Strip by the name of the NCR Sharecropper Farms, which going here you can actually directly talk to some of the farmers directly in charge of this farm, while also some of the soldiers here in charge of guarding it.
A lot of the crops grown here support the various NCR camps in the region. McCarran, Goff, and Forlorn Hope, to name a few.
Something the politicians back in Shady Sands came up with. They pay us to move here and farm the land. They even protect the fields. They're part of the deal, the Thaler Act. We work the fields while they protect the crops and the water. A lot of folks come to New Vegas and lose everything in free side of the Strip. They get hungry, desperate, and try to take our hard work. Much as I sympathize, their theft would put me in a bad spot. I got a crop quota to meet.
The Mojave Campaign and the expansion of the NCR, where does this leave the importance of President Kimball, and why is this character that we only get to see in the game once so important to the rest of the region's struggles? Well, simply, this is a very back and forth topic which drives the topic of politics in the NCR even more controversial as it could be. Now, once again, I'll be diving back into the past of the NCR before the annexation, but this time I want to focus completely on Kimball. Remember when I said that after Tandy's death that the NCR would start to drastically see change politically and militaristically? Well, this is something that would sort of eventually fall under Kimball's belt, with once there was presidents who would start to succeed Sandy, then the NCR would start to expand outwards in every direction in a very imperialistic way. The NCR itself would start to over time turn harsher into a very militarized faction, and the foreign relations between the NCR and other independents in the area would also start to see change. For example, during Tandy's leadership, numerous tribes in the area would come to respect Tandy and almost a sense worship here, as the NCR would also allow for these tribes to exist on their own. Once Tandy was out of the picture, these tribes would start to become quote-unquote domesticated as the nation expanded through tribal lands. Now, where Kimball himself comes into important play is his reputation with the NCR itself, whereas during the later end of the Mojave campaign, Kimball became widely popular as he would be decorated as a war hero, as Kimball would go on to not only oust previous President Wendell Peterson as an incompetent leader, but also become a major component in the destruction of raider tribes in the Mojave region. Another popularity boost for Kimball was his overturning of laws that limited the amount of ownership that farmers could have over land in Brahman, which in doing so not only gained popularity from the agricultural side of the nation, but also in of itself brought more power to those who were part of the agricultural scene. But where things start to turn bad for Kimball was his handling of the Mojave campaign, especially near the most recent times of the campaign, as tensions are higher more than ever, as the legions are across the dam, and the NCR are going to have to survive the biggest geopolitical struggle since the Great War. Going back to an earlier conversation in the video when I talked about arriving at at the Mojave outpost and discovering that traders are backed up at the outpost as they can't get cleared to go on through. Well, this is just one of the many examples of the downside of the Mojave campaign, and it just keeps going and going. This is an example of a logistical nightmare that has become for the NCR to annex such a massive region, as the ability to bring supplies and troops between California and Nevada is a lengthy process in of itself, and it doesn't get any better when you can't distribute them anyways as the roads are blocked off. Another big issue is the economy of the NCR, as not only is it really expensive for the nation to fund an annexation and a war at the same time, but due to the fact that many of the NCR citizens remain back at home, especially for senators hoping to gain political traction, don't want to allocate funds and resources miles out east to a desert that they will never actually get to see, and that all they know of this desert is that their daughters, son, husband, and wives, etc. are being sent out here to basically die in their eyes, as the NCR casualties are not to a minimum. The funding issues doesn't help when it's stacked onto the fact that during 2260, in the events of the BOS NCR war, that on a raid against Fort Aradesh, the Brotherhood of Steel managed to destroy the NCR's entire gold reserve, causing the NCR dollar to lose its value backed by gold. Eventually, this would make it so the dam's ability to produce water would take over as the new backing of the dollar. But beyond funding and travel routes comes the cost of lives and warfare that fall under the watch of President Kimball. One huge event that players might be familiar of is the massacre of Bitter Springs against the Great Khans in 2278, where during the NCR's first contact with the Vegas region, the Khans would decide to attack random caravans as they saw them as easy pickings, until the abduction and killing of 4 NCR troops in 2278, just 4 years later. The NCR would track the Khans back to their home at Bitter Springs, where they would have a main force of troops attack from the main canyon, while the 1st Recon Battalion soldiers such as Boone would line up on Coyote Tail Ridge in order to cover the main force's flanks. When the attack started, the 1st Battalion realized that the people coming down the flank weren't combatants, but instead were women, children, sick, and elderly. Despite trying to communicate back to command, they were ordered to fire anyways. This massacre of non-combatants wouldn't go unnoticed by the general population of Vegas. Although this news would be shadowed in the NCR press, the population of Vegas wouldn't be very happy about this misuse of military power, and this would be the start to views of an over-militarized force and the ruthless attrition. But this ruthless attrition would come at a cost. While the NCR is led by President Kimball, the constant distribution of troops to the dam has caused an issue in what is now a weak and far too stretched out fighting force alongside the Colorado River, as now not only places like Camp 401 Hope not being able to harbor the necessary resources and troops to hold its own, but just not even a mile away while the Legion sit breathing down their neck as the town of Nelson, the NCR were trying to set up another barrier, got hit by Dead Sea and his legionaries who now own the place, with the example their wrath as 3 NCR troopers remained lashed across us. This ignorance of the front line not only is terrible for troop morale and leads to higher rates of desertion, but this weakness on a border is very apparent in the towns we see, as not only has Nelson suffered casualties, but Camp Searchlight, which was once a major bulwark of the NCR acting as a logistics and communications hub, is now completely irradiated as Legion snuck in and set off pre-war nuclear fuel caches, killing not only themselves, but everyone else in the town and irradiating whoever is left in the area. The pure existence of Cottonwood Cove on the west side of the river serves as a major hole in the NCR line, as Legion raiding parties find themselves having easy times running through and attacking caravans in the NCR territory. But gross expansion of the Legion can be seen with the downfall of Ranger Station Charlie, where some of the NCR elite rangers were no match for the control of the Legion in that said area. And just over the mountain range is the burning town of Nelson, not only miles out from the Mojave outpost, so close that you can see the smoke burning from the monument. Another detriment to the reinforcements of these troops are summed up by Chief Hanlon.
Slow to... NCR's Senate has got funds tied up at the boneyard. And President Kimball ordered our most experienced rangers to chase ghosts down at Baja.
Not only this, but according to Chief Hanlon, the troopers themselves also suffer with not having proper armor or weapons to keep them battle ready when the time comes.
You've seen it yourself. Some of them don't even have proper service rifles or armor. Our heavy infantry, power armor units, they're back in NCR territory protecting the interests of Brahmin barons against small-time raiders.
The arm merchant sort of backs this up with the statement that troopers who get sent out to Vegas barely have but 2 weeks of training.
Anyway, I was always complaining about the standard issue gear. The new kids don't even get body armor. Can you believe that? I don't know what else the brass expects. Half these kids don't get more than 2 weeks of training before they ship them out here.
Around the Wasteland, we get to see numerous different hints at Kimball's existence, mainly through pictures that you can find on walls, with these also having the different opinions on Kimball made clear as we see. For example, a picture of Kimball can be found in the NCR embassy behind Crocker as he sits there in frame, while on the other side of Mojave in the NCR correctional facility, there is a very vandalized photo of Kimball resembling him as a clown. The year is now 2281, and another battle is closer than ever. This time, rather ill-advised or not, Kimball will be returning to the dam upon his vertibird, and he will give a speech. But this won't go unnoticed, and the Legion just might take this as a golden opportunity. If the player progresses through the NCR storyline, they will eventually find themselves face to face with Colonel Moore, who instructs them that the President will be visiting soon, and that they must do whatever it takes to make sure that he gets in and out alive.
The President is due to arrive soon, and we're sure the Legion won't waste such an opportunity. I want you to assist the security detail we've prepared for the President. His safety is critical to maintaining the men's fighting spirit.
You'll be tasked with speaking to Ranger Grant in order to start security protocol.
A lot to do to prepare for the President's visit, and not much time. Once we start, we'll be on a strict timetable. Are you ready?
Once stepping outside the dam will appear different than usual, with a stage set up and barricades in front of it spacing out the crowd. If one has a follower such as Boone, you'll get some special dialogue.
Nelson's back in
If
our
I was the
hands.
assassin, I'd be up on
We
that
can
ridge.
defend it this time.
Or if I didn't care about escaping, maybe that near tower. Or the landing pad behind us.
Standing near Ranger Grant and his radio, we notice the tower in the background with a Ranger sniper. We keep this in mind as you'll never know if it will come into effect. Behind us lies the landing pad, also another decent sniping spot, but most importantly where the President vertibird will be landing. The defensive perimeter is made up of a couple Rangers spanning the outside, with a Ranger veteran on stage. One of the veterans closer to the visitor center has a dog that is being used to sniff the crowd out, and the President will be here to give a speech for morale to the troops, and to meet and give a medal to one of the privates in the crowd. Now, there are many different things that happen and outcomes that we can seek during this mission of protecting the President. Moseying around inside the visitor center, you can bump into an engineer who will talk to you about her missing friend who is also an engineer. This might be something important to us.
I haven't seen my friend around here, have you? We were supposed to meet up so we can watch the President's speech together, but he hasn't shown up yet.
Looking upon the crowd, I realize there is for some reason a lone engineer, so I decide to go check him out. Once sneaking and checking his pockets, I spot and steal a redundant failsafe detonator. But what does this connect to? Upon searching around, we first head up to the vertibird. Although my character didn't have the stats if one goes to attempts to investigate the vertibird, with a repair explosives of 50, they will notice that someone planted a bomb on the President's flight. This can be reported to Ranger Grant, or if you're looking for more signs of attempts, you can keep searching around. As the President goes on giving his speech, I decide I want to check in on the sniper in the far tower, see what he might be able to see up there. But once approaching to the bottom of the tower, very noticeably is a dead Ranger on the ground. So if he's here, then who's up there?
Make the most noble of sacrifices to defend the principles of our republic, even here.
What are you doing up here?
That soil.
Oh, shit. I think I...
His actions will be stand here today, tribute to his valor.
After killing this guy's assassin, you can use the radio up top to report it.
On behalf of the descendants and people of the new California Republic.
Damn it. I can't believe the Legion actually got someone past our security. I'll have a security team sweep the area to see if the Legion has any more surprises for us. I'm also canceling the President's speech. We'll have a security team get him out of here right away. But let's not relax until he's safe.
When heading back to the stage, a couple Rangers head up to the President to escort him out, when that same engineer we saw earlier rushes the stage with him. Missing and killing another Ranger before being put down, the President is escorted to his vertibird. And you have successfully saved the President's life and the remaining morale for the troops that they might have needed in order to win the second battle of Hoover Dam.
Darling, you got to let me know. Should I stay or should I go? If you say that you are mine, I'll be here till the end of time. So you got to let me know. Should I stay or should I go?
But what if you didn't side with the NCR during your playthrough? Instead, you found yourself involved on the other side of the Colorado, but maybe you just might find yourself behind the scope aimed at the president. During the events of Fallout New Vegas, if one doesn't immediately get a hold of the platinum chip in Vegas, then you'll be notified that Benny decided to make his way to the fort in order to upgrade the Securitron army. Upon leaving the tops, you'll also be once again greeted by a familiar voice.
The eyes of the mighty Kaiser are upon you. He admires your accomplishments and bestows upon you the exceptional gift of his mark. Any crimes you may have perpetrated against the Legion are hereby forgiven. Kaiser will not extend this mercy a second time.
After making way to Cottonwood Cove, you will meet a man who offers to take you across the river to the fort, where you step foot upon the Legion's behemoth of a fort.
Awe, are you ready to head up? I am Cursar Lucullus, and my orders are to escort you to the Legion's camp at Fortification Hill.
The fort itself doesn't offer much for the Courier to explore, but upon looking into the distance, you can see the numerous other count of Legion tents set up, only amplifying the presence of this army. Around the fort, you can see numerous slaves almost crippled as they carry extreme amounts of weight up and down the hills of this fort. Upon reaching the top of the hill is where you start to see the Legion's highest ranking soldiers sharpening blades and preparing for combat. Eventually, you'll make your way to Caesar's tent, where you meet the leader of the Legion himself.
So I finally get to meet the Courier who's accomplished so much in so little time. That's why I summoned you here, right? I mean, a man nearly kills you, and your response is to track him across the breadth of the Mojave? You arrive on the strip and waltz into the Lucky 38 like someone left you a key under the doormat?
Meeting Caesar results in you being enlisted as his hand into the Mojave, carrying out any task that he asks of you. Now, before anything, I'd once again take a step back and look at the Legion as a whole. Where did they come from? And why are they so feared? Caesar's Legion is an imperialistic slavery society that falls under the totalitarian dictatorship founded by two men, Edward Caesar Sallow and Joshua Graham. Caesar's Legion of 2281 is a large army built off of years of slavery and a simulation of 86 different tribes in order to run their civilization in the absence of any sort of civilian lifestyles. The Legion would follow as close as they could the Roman ideologies and military style when creating their empire. Edward Caesar Sallow was originally an NCR citizen living in the Boneyard when, after the death of his father to raiders, his mother found safety working for the followers of the Apocalypse, where she would basically cook and clean for the scientists. Caesar would find himself spending most of his time in the libraries around the area reading and taking in as much information as he could. Eventually, as he became older, he would be sent on a mission to the Grand Canyon in order to bring knowledge to the tribes in the area, when eventually meeting Joshua Graham, who was a Mormon missionary from New Canaan at the time. On their journey, they would be kidnapped by members of the Blackfoot tribe. During this journey, Caesar and his other travelers would stumble upon a cache of historical books, specifically ones about the rise and fall of the Roman Empire and Julius Caesar himself. Caesar would study these books for weeks, but not yet understand the potential this knowledge holds. Once being a captive of the Blackfoot tribe, he would soon realize how weak and near decimation the Blackfoot tribe actually was, as they were also at war with 7 other tribes in the area. Caesar would take note of this and start to teach the tribes numerous things, such as how to maintain their weapons better, how to reload them, and he would eventually teach them how to create and use explosives, and would start to teach them war tactics that Caesar would learn from books he's read in the past. Eventually, the tribe would acknowledge Caesar's intellect and make him a war chief for the tribe, where they would eventually assault the Fredonians tribe, which once opposing tribe refused to surrender, Caesar had every man, woman, and children all killed. Then he moved on to the Kaibabs and offered them to surrender as well. When they refused, they took on one of the Kaibabs tribes to the Fredonians and showed them what Caesar's tribe was willing to do. The existence of a total barbaric warfare was shocking to the surrounding tribes, who had seen nothing like it before. This would cause them, then eventually the rest of the tribes as Caesar surrounded them, into giving up and joining Caesar. This would bring Caesar to the realization that tribal identity was the main issue here, so Caesar decided to erase all tribes and bring them all under a monolithic culture. Once Caesar, or who at this point is still Edward Sallow, would realize his tribe's strength, he would appoint himself as Caesar, his mass amount of numerous tribes would all fall under the Legion, and his military would fall under the existence of the Roman Empire. The reason Caesar would choose the Roman Empire is because he knew that the European history was so far out of the tribe's knowledge that there wouldn't be any question that he was the real Caesar and that he was the emperor of the real quote-unquote Rome. Caesar's Legion would go on to hold territory over Colorado Colorado up to Denver, most of Arizona, most of southern Utah, and New Mexico, with Nevada and the Dam being the Legion's next step into conquest. During the Legion's conquest of Arizona, they would run into the University of Arizona, where they would loot numerous amounts of football pads, where they would eventually reinforce them with steel plates, creating what is now the Legion's main uniform for military, whereas higher ranking soldiers such as Centurions wield armor that is created from scraps of enemies they have conquered in battle. For example, the Centurion armor has the shoulder plate of a T-45 power armor set. What Caesar saw in the Legion was protection for all who live under his massive empire, as long as his enemies who oppose his ideals aren't around anymore, and this enemy was the NCR, who would be the Legion's biggest opposition yet. This type of sentiment is reinforced by the specific caravans and traders who recognize that although the Legion is harsh, their roads are completely safe, as any bandits or raiders who attack caravans in the Legion territories are swiftly and harshly dealt with.
Not at all. They're my best customers. As long as you don't try to sell them chems or alcohol, they treat you fair. Hell, I don't even need to travel with guards most of the time in Legion territory. All the bandits are dead or run off.
There's some caravans that deal with the Legion, yes. And as much as it pains me to say it, any caravan marked by the Legion is safe as houses. They guard their roads, their supply lines. Even fiends would hesitate before going after any trader dealing with Legion.
During the Legion's expansion, Hoover Dam, an occupation of the NCR, would be discovered by a Legion from Atari, or as the players might know as UAZs. The very existence of Vegas would become a major symbol and reason for the Legion to take over, as the Colorado River would become Caesar's Rubicon, and New Vegas would be Caesar's Rome. In 2277, Joshua Graham with the Legion's reformed tribes would march against the NCR at the Battle of Hoover Dam. With the Legion's main battle tactic being recruits at the front and commanders at the back, the NCR would set up sharpshooters to target specifically the higher ranking Legion troops. With Graham being unable to adapt, he would direct his troops to attack the Rangers targeting his troop. As the Legion advanced, the Rangers and 1st Recon would strategically fall back into Boulder City, where eventually this would turn out to be a trap. As the troopers and Rangers led the Legion into the city, eventually the Rangers would detonate explosives rigged all throughout the city that would maim and kill most of the Legion forces. The remaining snipers and soldiers would fire upon legionaries who were retreating back across the dam. This would serve as a major defeat to the Legion, but one they would not forget, as they would take the legate Joshua Graham, Caesar's right-hand man, who's been there from the beginning, and set him on fire and throw him into the Grand Canyon. The Legion would remain on the east side of Colorado, as the NCR would continue to run the dam and keep building New Vegas up. Caesar wouldn't forget this, and now the storm brews as he plans to invade the dam for a second time. But fortunately for him, his greatest sworn enemy is about to give a speech just only a couple of miles from where he sits. But what is it about the NCR that Caesar views as making its death important, even if he already believes the NCR's downfall is inevitable? Well, fortunately, Caesar puts it best for us.
Do you want my opinion as a former citizen or future conqueror? Actually, my opinion's the same either way. As a young man, I was taught to venerate President Tandy of Shady Sands, the founding mother of the new California Republic. Did you know her presidency lasted 52 years? And that her father, Aradesh, was the Republic's first president? Does that sound like a democracy to you? Or a hereditary dictatorship? Because the council didn't dare oppose her. She was too popular. She had the people's love. So things ran smoothly, more or less. And as soon as she was gone, as soon as there really could be democracy, what happened then? Ever since losing its queen, the NCR has been weaker, more diffuse. Democracy has been its weakness, not its strength.
Simply put, Caesar believes that due to the pure existence of President Tandy's 52-year presidency, that the NCR strays further away from a democracy more than ever, almost as if the democracy is just a term used to make the NCR feel free.
Greed runs rampant. The government is corrupt, accepting bribes from Brahmin barons and landowners to the detriment of citizens. The NCR is a loose conglomerate of individuals looking out for themselves. It's lost virtue. No one cares about the collective, the greater good. It's not built to last. I'm just hastening the inevitable. Of course, the most powerful my legion has faced. Also the first to which I am ideologically opposed. Until now, every tribe I've conquered has been so backwards and stunted, enslavement has been a gift bestowed upon them. My conquest of the Mojave will be a glorious triumph, marking the transition of the Legion from a basically nomadic tribe to a genuine empire. Just as my namesake campaigned in Gaul before he crossed the Rubicon, so have I campaigned and will cross the Colorado.
Although the NCR itself struggles from political corruption and greed, something that's interesting that separates the Legion from other groups in the Fallout universe is Caesar's use of philosophy and his antics, and reasoning onto why the NCR must fall under the Legion. This philosophy is his use of Hegelian dialectic, the method in which developed by 19th century German philosopher George Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel. This method is an interpretation of how ideas change from internal contradiction into concrete forms. This can be explained further from Caesar.
No, I'll destroy it because it's inevitable that it be destroyed. It's Hegelian dialectics, not personal animosity. How do I put this basically enough? It's a philosophical theory, the kind you might encounter if you took time to read some books. The fundamental premise is to envision history as a sequence of dialectical conflicts. Each dialectic begins with a proposition, a thesis, which inherently contains or creates its opposite, an antithesis. Thesis and antithesis. The conflict is inevitable, but the resolution of the conflict yields something new, a synthesis, eliminating the flaws in each, leaving behind common elements and ideas. The bombs wiped the slate clean. Human civilization descended to a level of ignorance that effectively set our cultural progress back to zero. The NCR has all the problems of the ancient Roman Republic: extreme bureaucracy, corruption, extensive senatorial infighting. Just as with the ancient Republic, it is natural that a military force should conquer and transform the NCR into a military dictatorship. Thesis and antithesis. The Colorado River is my Rubicon. The NCR Council will be eradicated, but the new synthesis will change the Legion as well, from a basically nomadic army to a standing military force that protects its citizens and the power of its dictator.
When it comes down to Kimball though, our main man for the existence of this video, just how important exactly is the death of Kimball, and how does he view the leader of his biggest enemy? Caesar sees Kimball as a symbol and driving force for the NCR's occupation in the east. He believes that without Kimball, the NCR would ditch the Vegas region and head back home. That without Kimball, the NCR would have no reason nor legacy for why they would be in the east anymore. Especially if another president takes place in Kimball's place, then who knows what could change with the NCR.
A man of potential, held back by the craven political context he inhabits. You realize he was a general, the hero of the Mojave, they called him. A title he earned by extirpating lesser tribes that dared attack NCR citizens. His responses were swift and draconian. President Tandy, the founding mother, coddled hostile tribes. But her successors were less naive, so they gave Kimball free rein. And after a respectable military career, what does he do? Become a politician. But he did so by election. What better way to stunt the growth of leaders, not to mention whole cultures? A leader shouldn't have to kowtow to those who serve him. With so much energy wasted on those below, how is he ever to move forward? Had he taken the government by force, used his army to stage a coup, things would be very different. I'll just have to do it for him. It'll frighten them. If I can reach out and kill whomever I choose, then they know the only reason they're alive is I haven't tried yet. You have to understand that Kimball is a symbol. Without him, there would be no NCR occupation of the Mojave. He mustered the troops, as many as his Senate would allow, and sent them in. All the right reasons, done all the wrong ways. Any invasion by a democracy is a half measure. When Kimball dies, the NCR will recoil from the Mojave and from his legacy. By the time they recover and try to strike back, I'll be invading them.
Yet, after all, reaching his hand across the Mojave just might be exactly what he does. Upon siding with the Legion during your playthrough and working your way up the quest for Kaisar, you will eventually be granted the quest Arizona Killer, and will be tasked with rendezvousing a Legion frumatari by the name of Cato Hostilius out in the hills of Boulder City. He'll ask if you're ready to get into a motion of assassinating Kimball, and you both will rest into the next day. Once the day rolls around, he will ask if you have a plan to kill Kimball, with whatever you say to him will result in him giving you details and options before you decide to head to the dam. Cato will tell you he has a vertibird bomb that requires a level 50's explosive checks in order to acquire. Upon this, he will tell you to play to your strengths, and that whatever suits you best might be the best way to kill Kimball. After this, he will give you NCR trooper armor. This is your disguise, and this is how you will be able to get to the dam without being shot on sight. Although, he will warn you that this will only fool troopers and civilians. Rangers, if you get too close, will be able to sniff you out. Walking your way to the dam and blending in with the crowd, you will have a little bit of time to look around and develop your plan before Kimball arrives. Remember that private that was going to receive that reward? Well, he's back and is too stupid to recognize you.
Have you seen my helmet?
Walking literally only 10 feet behind you, you will instantly find his helmet. And if the Courier has a C4 and detonator, you can quickly sneak one into his helmet, but be careful as one of the patrolling rangers frequents his path. So he's close to the helmet, he can see you. After booby trapping the helmet, you could tell him it's on the table, which then he puts on comically as the President vertibird lands. Once the President's speech commences and Kimball's next to the private, you can pull the trigger when you like. Now, it's time to run. Now, although nuking the president is a sort of funny look, we need to be more covert, especially if we want to escape untouched. Once the president arrives, you can wait for him and his security to make their way to the stage. Before moseying over to the helipad, you must be vigilant of Ranger Grant as he's making his way around the area and might catch you. But the unexpected trooper won't be able to know the difference. Talking to him with his 50 speech check, you can convince the trooper to let you up, and with your explosive skill, you can plant the bomb on the vertibird. Waiting for Kimball's speech to wrap up, he'll make his way up to the vertibird and fly off into the sunset, but he eventually becomes the sunset. Not a bad plan, and we remain concealed, but what else is there for us to do here? Going back to where Ranger Grant is patrolling is a control panel for the artillery gun on top of the dam. Here you have two options, one requiring 50 repair skill and another requiring 50 science skill. Choosing the repair skill, you can cut short the circuit gun control board, ensuring that at some random point during the speech, the gun will explode. Waiting just a little bit, smoke will start to rise out of the barrel, and alternatively, choosing the science option, you can control the gun so that it'll shoot the president's bird down, not only keeping you covert, but if you're a busy guy, then maybe this one route was for you, as the president doesn't even land. Although this way, in my opinion, is the most interesting one, we aren't done yet. Upon leaving the crowd, you can sneak your way to the distant sniper tower with the ranger on the top. Using the exterior ladder, you can get behind him and wipe him out. This attack won't go noticed, luckily, by anyone else around. You could take a moment to gather your surroundings, and once Kimball's on stage, your scope is settled in. Luckily, the tower is on the outskirts of the trooper area, so you can run the opposite way and find a stealthy way out of the dam.
I shot the sheriff, but I didn't shoot no deputy. Oh no, oh. I shot the sheriff, but I didn't shoot no deputy.
have done it. With the president now dead, and you have successfully secured a future for the Legion, allowing Morrow for the Legionaries to assault the dam, and bringing despair to the NCR as their leader has now perished, although maybe some, even if they find themselves on the Vegas side of the Colorado, might not be disappointed with this action. Whether or not you protect the president's life, or you happen to be the one taking it, the second of Battle of Hoover Dam will commence, and the winning side will depend on whoever the Courier made their initial decision to fight for. Now, with both sides having their different views on what just might happen when Kimball dies, being varying, although both won't be able to know until the time comes, how exactly does this assassination attempt affect the rest of the Wasteland? Well, interesting enough, if you decide to go around the Mojave and talk to random citizens, you can get many different reactions.
That President Kimball nearly got killed at Hoover Dam. Now he knows how we feel about the NCR around here.
Oh my God, are you the one who saved President Kimball? I wonder if the president will come this way again. He had kind of a close call, I hear.
Who would have thought someone would try to assassinate President Kimball with all those troops around?
I suppose you did the right thing saving Kimball, even though it means we're still screwed here in Freeside.
Why the hell would you stop someone from killing Kimball?
It got to President Kimball. How long can we hold out?
Kimball managed to get himself knocked off. Serves him right.
You killed him. What have we done to you?
I bet I'd get a reward for bringing your head to the authorities, assassin. Uh-huh.
Hey, did you hear the NCR president got whacked? Good for whoever did it, I say. Couldn't have happened to a nicer guy.
Hey, killing Kimball's gonna make a mess of things around here. The troopers coming through here are mean enough already.
Even without our president, we won't leave the new territories.
Even presidents die, huh? Good.
President Kimball was careless and overconfident, and it got him killed.
So much for the might of the NCR. Their president got killed over at Hoover Dam.
Kimball's assassin is always welcome here.
And with all this being said, this is the end of my video. If you have made it this far, thank you very much, and I thank you for sticking around. Please subscribe and tell me down in the comments how I did on this video. And now you know that time when you had to protect the president and fall in New Vegas, or be the one to pull the trigger.